What's up guys, it's Ivan. On this channel I provide tips, tricks, advice, and strategies for your graduate school applications. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. Graduate school application season is just around the corner. So today I wanted to share with you a successful statement of purpose for the Harvard Graduate School of Education. This statement of purpose is from an international student from Poland who recently completed the Master of Education at Harvard Graduate School of Education just last year. With this video, I hope that you learn how to craft your own statement of purpose for graduate school. I hope you use the tips that I provide as I read and assess the statement of purpose. If you are interested in receiving statement of purpose feedback, I provide a service on the Fiverr freelance platform, which is linked down below. Please check it out and I look forward to working with you. Let's hop into my computer so I can share the statement of purpose. All right, you guys. So right here we have the LinkedIn page where you can access the statement of purpose. This person that wrote it, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but his contact information is right here. I will link his information down below in the description if you want to reach out to him. I am glad that a large part of the admissions process to top universities is anonymized. Googling someone with limited prior knowledge of that person may easily turn nasty. Out of all people, I know it too well. Usually it goes like this. You Google my name, there are a number of articles on my activism and photos with trophies from debating competitions. But then you suddenly find an entirely different kind of my internet presence. Multiple photos from various anti-immigrant rallies and manifestations. All of them feature a frightened teenage boy surrounded by portly, aggressive, bald-headed men. At 13, I joined the All Polish Youth, a nationalist organization. But this is not who I am anymore. As a debate and public speaking coach, I pride myself on being a person that uses the power of education to prevent young people from falling into this dangerous trap. Having gone through the experience of radicalization and de-radicalization, I am acutely aware that education is the single most important factor determining our future. It is the realization that has always driven me to take action. I believe that my dream of making competitive debating a powerful educational tool, a widespread activity amongst school students all around the world, will be significantly more informed if I am given the honor of studying at HGSC. Okay, so in this introductory paragraph here, we see a different type of introduction. Normally, what I suggest people to do is that they state their goals, what their niche is, what they hope to transform in education, as well as a little bit of why they want to pursue a career at HGSC. This student does do that, but in a creative way. So the first thing that I want to note here is the first statement. I am glad that a large part of that admissions process to top universities is anonymized. This statement here jumps out to me. The reason why this statement jumps out to me is because it sparks my interest. Now I want to know why this person is concerned about the admissions process being anonymized. And so I want to read further, and that's what you need to do when you're writing a statement of purpose. You need to make sure that your first couple of sentences catch the reader's attention. And so this person obviously goes and speaks about how if you Google him, that you will find two different sides of him. So one of them is on his activism and debating competitions, and the other part of it is at anti-immigrant rallies and manifestations in Poland. And so this is a really powerful paragraph because it catches the reader's attention and it's unique. When you are considering applying to top universities for graduate school, you want to make sure that you write stories that only fit your narrative, your story. And so right here's a perfect example of that. This student is saying that a lot about him, like, I'm learning about his debating competitions, I'm learning about his activism, I'm learning about his prior experience with anti-immigration rallies and how he's part of that. So I already know a lot about this applicant in very few sentences. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you stand out right away, and you want to make sure that your stories, when you write them, only apply to you and they're not generalized. So right here, we see that this story of this 13-year-old boy joining the Polish Youth Nationalist Organization is only an experience that is going to relate to him. And so that's what I want you to do when you're writing your statement of purpose. I want you to think of stories and write those stories as if they could only apply to you. Don't make it too generalized because, again, when you're applying to top universities, it is important for you to stand out. So your stories, your niche are going to be important. Towards the end of the introductory paragraph, we learn a little bit about what he wants to do at HGSC. So again, in your introductory paragraph, you want to make sure you mention which institution you're applying to and which program. The student didn't mention which program, but that's okay because he did mention the institution. So he said he wants to go to HGSC to learn how to make competitive debating a powerful educational tool for students that around the world. So this is very unique. Not that many applicants to HGSC are going to be competitive debaters, and they don't want to use that as a tool to transform students' career paths and education, right? So this only belongs to him. This goal only belongs to him. So very few people are going to be are very few people are competitive debaters and want to use that as a powerful tool to encourage others to use when they graduate from high school or from whichever educational institutions. So he wants to go to HGSC specifically to do that. So when you're applying to HGSC, I want you to figure out what you want to transform education and write that in your introductory paragraph. And then you're going to explain why you want to do that throughout the SOP, as we'll see in a little bit. I did not always have this perspective on education. In fact, I hated almost every minute spent at schools in Białystok, my hometown located in one of Poland's least developed regions. My interest in social sciences were rarely appreciated unless I received accolades that my schools could market as their own achievements. Typically, I was scolded for unconventional passions, involvement in weird extracurriculars like philosophy classes, or disagreeing with teachers' opinions. This lack of validation made me desperately seek acceptance in other places. The bar was low. Just a few friendly conversations on politics with the all Polish youth members made me feel accepted, and I quickly radicalized. For 3 years, it seemed to be my only safe space. In spite of the growing frustration that at many of the activities of the organization, I was too afraid of losing the only place where my opinion was valued, and I could engage in discussions in politics, history, and philosophy. However, I was lucky enough to get involved in competitive debating. This was a real turning point. I became less arrogant. After all, being forced to defend many opposing views was not an easy thing for someone who just until recently had been surrounded by far-right nationalists, but I was not humiliated. The egalitarian character of competitive debates, where all teams are evaluated only by their intellectual merit, was incredibly appealing. This is what I was lacking in formal educational settings, and precisely what made me so fascinated about debating. So in the first body paragraph of the statement of purpose, we learn more about his educational journey, right? So he talks about how his hometown in Poland didn't really fulfill his educational needs. A lot of the teachers there, the administrators, the staff, they weren't encouraging of his, as he calls it, weird extracurriculars or passions like philosophy or disagreeing with teachers' opinions. He didn't feel validated, or he didn't feel safe or welcomed in his educational journey and in his elementary, middle school, and high school career, right? So that tells us as a reader, that tells us a little bit about his background in the educational space, right? So one thing that I want you to know when you write your statement of purpose is that I want you to I want you to be specific. So for example, here, this student mentions his hometown name in Poland, even though I can't pronounce it. I think it's pronounced Białystok, and I can't pronounce it. Sorry about that. But as you can tell, he's providing context for the reader. He's mentioning the name of his hometown. A lot of the time when I read statement of purposes and I edit them, they are very vague. People don't mention their hometowns. So I want you to be direct and mention where you're from and talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about your educational journey and how you ended up wanting to pursue your passion. So, for example, here we learn a little bit about why this student is passionate about debating and teaching debating in public schools, right? So at the end, he leads with talking about how he found competitive debating when he was, going through this phase of not being accepted. He found this and he used competitive debating to change his perspective on education. And then that led for him to want to create change or transform education for other students who do not feel valued or heard in their public schooling or their schooling in general, right? And so he's using those discrepancies in his experience to improve education. And that's why he wants to go to HGSC. So I hope you're seeing here the thought process in terms of how to write your statement of purpose to utilize your stories, your experiences, and lead those to transformative change. Shortly after my first contact with debating, I founded Białystok Debating Society, the first society in Poland for school students that quickly started succeeding at the university level. I won the Polish University's National Debating Championship in my 10th grade as one of the youngest people in the contest history and started sharing my knowledge by delivering workshops. Already at that moment, I found a passion for educating others. Seeing how my debate training sessions were allowing people to completely rethink their university plans and open up new perspectives was a highlight of my school experience. To improve my workshops, I familiarized myself with the seminal work of educational theory, most notably Barak Rosenstein's Principles of Instruction and Jean Piaget's Theory of Cognitive Development. At that time, however, I did not think a career in education was viable. In fact, my then aversion towards formal education was only further entrenched as I witnessed physical and psychological violence, suicide attempts, discrimination, and mental health problems that were frequently caused by the very place that was meant to alleviate them, school. On top of that, my parents shaped my traumatic experience of the communist education that harshly punished all forms of critical thinking, discouraged all attempts to call out my teachers for their incompetence and harassment. Although their attitude was coming from an authentic fear for me, it only increased my immense frustration at the injustice of schools. You are right, but was a phrase I heard a lot. The idea of a career in education did not really cross my mind. Instead, I picked international relations and social anthropology, a degree that covered my other interests. So, in this next paragraph, we learn more about the student's competitive debating journey. So, we learned that he founded a debating society in his hometown of Poland and that he won the Polish University National Debating Championship, right? And so, this is telling us as a reader, it's showing us where his journey or how his journey started in debating and where it's going to lead him to. So in the next couple of sentences here, we learned that a little bit more about his passion for debating and why debating was a transformational portion of his educational career. So we learned that debating allows him to critically think, especially in this Polish country where the critical thinking and challenging teachers and educators competencies and theories are not valued or really are not okay. It can lead you into a lot of trouble. So this is showing us as a reader the student's path towards wanting to become an educator. It's telling us some of the challenges he faced as an undergraduate and high school student and how he overcame those challenges, or at least attempted to overcome those challenges through debating and through national competitions. And so he talks a little bit about some of the things that schooling didn't provide to him at the high school and university level, and how he used debating to fulfill some of his passions, and how he wants to use that knowledge, that experience to further debating at a national and then also international scale. Then we also learn a little bit about why he ended up choosing to major in international relations and social anthropology at the undergraduate level, because a career in education wasn't a viable option given what I already read in the statement of purpose. So when you are writing your statement of purpose, tell the story, tell those little small stories that show the reader why you're interested in your niche, in your passions. Again, I'm going to emphasize niche and career goal a lot because it's really important. So as we can tell, the theme, the niche for the statement of purpose is competitive debating. So as you can tell, all the stories the student is telling are focused on competitive debating. So make sure you find a theme or a niche that you want to stick to and that you want to focus on with your statement of purpose. When I moved to London for college, it was the very first time I met aspiring people in a formal educational setting and felt there were authority figures who wanted to critically engage with my ideas. This stark contrast to my previous experiences gave me the courage to take action. I wrote a letter to my regional board of education describing the horrible experiences of my school. The effect was disappointing. The formal investigation was bogus, but its wide coverage in local media made many young people aware that what they are experiencing is unacceptable. Inspired by a very supportive reaction to this letter, I realized how I could positively impact the education of others without creating structural change. I decided to make such an impact through teaching debating and public speaking. So in this next paragraph, again, we learn a little bit more about his educational journey. So this time we learned that he went to London for college, and that's where he started figuring out that his critical thinking skills or his thoughts, his philosophies were valued, and people wanted to listen to his voice, his experiences, and how that led him to writing a letter to the regional board of education back home in Poland. Although the effect of that letter wasn't what he expected, it did provide some change in terms of making other young people realize that their educational experiences were unacceptable and that others were experiencing the same thing. And so what I want you to do when you're writing your statement of purpose is I want you to use the sandwich. I call it the sandwich tactic. So you want to make sure you write what the context, the topic is. You want to explain some of the discrepancies or challenges you face. And then you want to explain how you tried or attempted to overcome those challenges. And then you want to further explain why you want to go to graduate school to mitigate some of those challenges you face as a student. Working in schools in Poland and the United Kingdom has shown me the real magnitude of change I can create. Playing a pivotal role in the life of students from disadvantaged backgrounds will always rank among my proudest achievements. Starting as a shy student with limited background knowledge, one of them made it to the playoff stage of all competitions he attended in his first year of debating. Now he studies psychology at the University of Warsaw, an outcome that would have been inconceivable even to himself just some time ago. I attribute success to extensive use of scaffolding, not discouraging him from coping with more challenging tasks. I designed many training activities with Elliot Erozan's jigsaw technique to force students to be dependent on each other, which helped him believe that his intellect was worthy of appreciation. I also focused on creating an inclusive learning environment when coaching some of the brightest young minds in the UK's top schools, Westminster School and St. Paul's Girls' School. In the latter, I frequently use flipped classrooms to differentiate my instruction depending on students' abilities. I also designed and launched a peer coaching program in which my senior students deliver debate training to novice debaters in their school and local state schools. Recently, 2 of my students were selected to England's 5-member representation at the 2021 World Schools Debating Championship. In the latest phase, with only the top 8 students, I also had the youngest representative, a 14-year-old speaker who went through my peer coaching program. Having delivered over 1,000 hours of classes in over 12 countries, I am now confident that I want to change the world by promoting debating and creating environments where students see the real power of their intellect. So this is a powerful paragraph here because now he's starting to move into why HGSC and what he wants to do there to create change in education. And that's the purpose of going to HGSC. Their mission at HGSC is, or learn to change the world, sorry. So he's playing off that logo, right? Or that motto, learn to change the world. He's telling HGSC committee how he plans to change the world through debating. In the previous paragraph, he mentioned that he started making an impact by teaching debate and public speaking. And so here he speaks about that. So he talks about how he started doing that in Poland and the United Kingdom, and now he facilitated a lot of different teaching opportunities for debate. So he was able to, use different methodologies to teach debate, such as Elliot Aronson's jigsaw technique to teach students how to be dependent on each other, and so they can build their intellect. He also was able to use the classroom so that students could be more, so they can learn on their own and they can feel more confident with their abilities. And he also showed some data, right? He showed some results. So his teachings led to great outcomes. Like a lot of his students were in different national debate teams in different countries. He also mentioned how some of his top students were able to make it far in these competitions. So when you are writing your stories, you also want to make sure you provide data, numbers, and showcase the outcomes based on what you are creating, what you are doing to impact students' lives. They want to see impact. And that's the point of writing a statement of purpose, is showing that impact. And so right here, we see that the student has conducted over 1,000 hours of classes in over a dozen countries. And now he knows for a fact, after all that experience, that he wants to pursue promoting, debating, and creating environments where students see the real power of their intellect at HGSC. And then he's going to go on and explain why HGSC is the perfect school and the perfect program to fulfill his goals. I have already taken a step in this long journey. While completing my final year of undergraduate studies, I co-founded the first company in Europe offering competitive debate training to high school students. Shortly after launch, our pupils became members of the Polish national debate team and won top speaker awards at international competitions. The innovative approach to teaching debating was recognized by an angel investor and one of Poland's best private schools, where I now teach debating as a school subject to 11, 12-year-olds. After being forced to move my classes online, I also started working at an edtech startup to better understand how to design technology conducive to learning. My own life provides compelling evidence that any change in the quality of education can influence young people's crucial decisions and their self-worth. It is for this reason that I am interested in learning about the best educational practices suited for the coming technological era from top experts at HGSC. Learning further constructivist ideas in education and how they fit in the world of technology from John Richards, or exploring the importance of civic education using the knowledge of Myra Levinson, would be a huge step in my future career focused on promoting the art of debating. It would allow me to become an impactful leader who creates environments that people's drive for excellence is never belittled. So this paragraph here is telling the committee a little bit about what he's currently doing. So he co-founded Europe's first company that offers competitive debating training to high school students. And then that led for an angel investor to invest in his company and his teachings. And so this is telling the committee, okay, this student right here, he is passionate about this topic of competitive debating, but he's also acting on it. He created and started this company in Europe, and he's disseminating some of those tactics to different people. But now he needs more theoretical knowledge and practical experiences, maybe to expand his company or maybe to find new avenues of investments. Whatever the reason is, he's telling us, yes, I've done all this stuff here. Yes, I founded my own company focused on debating, but I still need to learn more. And that's why I want to go to HGSC. And then he takes it a step further and he says, I want to use some of these scholars, knowledge to create what I envision for my company. So he mentioned names like John Richards and Myra Levinson's, and that he wants to focus on these scholars' knowledge to be able to create the change that he wants to create with his passion for competitive debating. This career plan stems from a simple realization. If only my teachers were familiar with Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, my classmates and I would not have been scolded for the desire to learn from discussion rather than copying into notebooks. If only teachers applied experiential learning, curricula would not have been focused on memorizing extensive amounts of theory. If only my teachers read Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, thousands of students in my country would not have been radicalized. By studying at HGSC, I will prepare myself to create a positive social impact that education is meant to create. So in his concluding paragraph here, he reiterates his experiences in the Polish education system. So he talks about how if teachers were able to use some of different theories, like for example Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, or teachings from Paulos Freire pedagogy of the oppressed, that maybe different outcomes might have been possible for not only himself but other Polish students. And so he's using that to make a statement and say, if I go to HGSC, I'm going to make sure that I employ some of these theories into my pedagogy, but also try to improve education in Poland, because I want to make a social impact that is meant for everybody in education, right? And so he's telling us all these things that happened to him in his educational journey, that they need to be improved, and here's how he would improve it, and here's what he wants to do for the future of Polish students. All right, you guys, so that concludes the video on the statement of purpose that got this student into the Harvard Graduate School of Education. If you have any questions down below about statement of purpose or graduate school applications, let me know in the comments down below and I will get to you as soon as I can. Also, don't forget to access my statement of purpose review service on Fiverr, which is linked down below, so I can help you get into competitive programs. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.